Very well. Doing very well, man.
Do you play guitar? I not see your guitars back there.
No, I'm actually at Leadership Rutherford today, and so
Oh,
we're
okay.
at the Rock. I can't remember the name of the church, but I'm in one of their rooms, and I thought it made for a cool background.
It does make for a cool background. Yeah. Is that in Smyrna or?
No, no, it's over here off of what we have so many new roads now, Bill.
I
Next
understand.
next to Toots West.
Oh,
So
okay. Oh,
over
yeah, yeah, yeah.
way over there. So
I got you. I got you.
I should look it up. Anyway, so thank you for making time for me, man.
Sure.
Um,
It worked out just fine.
well, I reached out to all the other incumbents, and you were the first to call me back. And you always do, even when we don't see eye to eye on issues, you always take my call, always listen to me. And I just really, really appreciate that.
Well, I learn just every time I talk to you, I learn something. So it's not it's on my own interest, my self interest to call you back.
Well, thank you very much. So I sent you some questions, and I'm only planning on keeping you for about 15, 20 minutes. So there's no
Right.
way we'll get through all those or anything like
That's
that.
fine.
But
That's fine.
I thought I'd
I read
start.
several weeks ago, so I don't really have
Oh,
a
well,
clue what to
you
ask. That's
right
okay.
there. You don't know what the pitch count is then,
That's okay.
All right. So you're running for office. You've served this past term, but you served a term before, right?
I did 2002 to 2006 is my first time, and actually first time I ran for public office was in 2002.
Oh, wow. And so you won that one, and then you took a break afterwards. Am I understanding
I
it
was,
correctly?
well, actually, one of the reasons that I left city council at that point in time was because I was kind of frustrated about how the county and the city were working together and the
Wow.
relationship. I felt I could help that and so I ran as an independent for the county mayor position, and it's kind of hard for an independent to do. But I got a chance to talk about that particular issue, working better together and seeing our own common interests working together, because it seemed like at that point in time, if something went right, everybody wanted credit. If something went wrong, everybody was pointing a finger, which I don't know that politics has changed much, but
I'd
it's
say
pretty much
not.
the same. It's kind of the same at every level of government, but my nature is to kind of try to help people find common ground and work together, and that's always been in my heart. So that was what I thought. I got a chance every time I've run for office. I actually ran for the state as a state representative also in that time. But, God in his great wisdom allowed me to lose 2 races so I could still be at home with my girls, and they were still in the house during that 8
Okay.
years. And so I got a chance to be with my girls, and that is time you don't get back. I think you and I've had that conversation.
Yes,
Setting your priorities, your family will never serve you wrong.
that's right. So, well, you mentioned like that your goal, and you decided to run in the county. But like, what do you have any goals for the next 4 years? What are you trying to? What would you like to accomplish if reelected?
Well, probably the most challenging thing it hasn't changed much, is connecting people with the government that serves them, and involving people in the dialogue. Doesn't mean, like we've said, doesn't mean that we always come to the same conclusions, but helping people understand the process, and helping them have access to the process is something really important to me. It always has been. I served as an election official, helping run elections for 30 years before I ever ran for public office. So elections and voting has always been something that's really sacred to me, and involving people in the process. And while it's not always easy, sometimes it's very difficult, because when you don't see eye to eye, it seems like it's, it can get contentious with people real hard, real quickly. And so you have to listen a lot. And in the midst of that, you can help people not only will you, like I say, quite honestly, you'll benefit from that process, and hopefully you can make the process work better too, because I think we cut off our nose to spite our face when we don't involve the public in helping us find, answers. If only the 7 of us that are up there are trying to find answers, we're really limiting our pool of knowledge. And, so I really enjoy doing that. And that's my heart anyway, to do that.
Is there a way to get more people involved? Do you think, like to get, like you said, to get more of these ideas to you guys? Can you do that better in the future? Is there something
Yeah.
the system could do better?
Well, I think the way it is helping them, always incumbent upon the people that are elected to continually be reaching out and trying to find new ways to reach the public. We've tried different things, some of them with varying degrees of success. We had a public hearing thing. In fact, when I first came on in 2002, suggested that we have an open mic or comments section like with public hearing like we do now, and we did it every month, and sometimes we didn't have anybody there, and we set aside time, really an hour, to do that, and it got to where nobody showed up. So then they decided not to do it anymore, and I couldn't justify continuing to say we need to do it when nobody's showing up. So I think we need to reach out, go into community meetings. We've done that, we've tried that as well. Some of them are extremely important. We had one out at Blackman that I was so excited about because I said, this is what it should be. We had a full house and lots of people talking and contributing. We were listening a lot, but the public had an opportunity to share what their perspectives were, and realize that it's a flawed process. As long as people are involved in it, we're going to, it's not going to be perfect, but we got to keep trying. And that's the one thing I think, we need to keep before us, is that just because one thing doesn't work doesn't mean that we stop trying. And we try to, every time someone calls me, or every time somebody writes me an email, I can't guarantee that I've responded to everybody, but I have sure tried to. And the ones that I've missed, I'm not sure, something else happened, because
I've always wondered how many emails you guys get about the different hot topics. Is it a lot?
A few weeks ago, we had a few. It depends upon what the topic is, but we had, and there's a group, I think it's called One Touch Politics. You may be familiar with them, but basically you tell them a community issue or something like that, and they write a form letter, and then you basically send it out to everybody, and all you have to do is basically put you as a constituent and your address, and
it hits all the
and it goes to all your elected officials. And I guess a few weeks ago, I got well over 100 emails concerning an issue. And if somebody wrote me a personal kind of question or something like that, I tried to write them a personal kind of response.
Sure.
But if it was a cut and paste, I'll be honest with you, I had a cut and paste answer that basically said, and that's how I got 100 answers. I responded 100 times. And it was all day long in the midst of, working at the studio, or in the midst of all the stuff that I was doing, trying to answer them as they came in. Because if you get behind when you're getting 100 emails, it becomes overwhelming. So anyway, try to do the best I can, try to be responsive. But I would encourage, I had somebody the other day that said, I just want to know 2 answers to 2 questions. I don't want you to elaborate. I want one-word answers. And basically,
they don't know you.
Well, that's true, Gabriel. You're so true. But they want one-word answers, and it was, who are you going to vote for in November, and what faith are you? And I went, gee whiz, I can't define. That doesn't define who I am. I thought that was so unfair.
That's some broad painting there, right?
Yeah. So basically, I said, why don't you and I go have coffee or come to my studio, and then you'll understand me a little. You'll get a little bit better understanding, and more importantly, I'll get to know you.
Right.
And then when we have a relationship, Gabriel's like you and me. We have a relationship, so it's not your city councilman talking to it's Gabriel talking to Bill. Right. And if we can get like that, then I can really hear you, and you can really hear me. And it's based on meaningful relationships. And whether we agree with each other or come to the same conclusions after all the facts are presented, that doesn't really matter. We can still appreciate each other's conscience, try to be conscientious in doing what they're meeting their responsibilities.
Yeah. So like 2 weeks ago, I'm guessing that the emails you had were probably related to the Black Lives Matter.
Yeah.
The
funding of the police department.
Yeah. Do you have an opinion about that BLM movement?
Well, what was interesting about the emails, let me tell you what I learned, okay? Because this is, I think, is important. You can't really, the surface conversation that you have with people, the first time you meet them, a lot of times you can make the wrong assumptions as to what their point is. And in those blanket emails, my assumption was, when they said defund the police department, I just couldn't see the rationale between defund the police department and a safer community. I couldn't see how you could logically say, we're going to shut down the police department, close the doors, lock it up, give the key away, and our community is going to be safer. But all we got to do is have a few projects, art projects, and a few programs that deal with the community.
If
And
only, right? If only.
I mean, the problem is it's not an either or. This is going to be pretty radical in saying this. I don't think the two issues are that far apart, because I think the issues are listening to each other. I think people who are conscientious about the security are in their communities cannot be all right with injustice or inequities that happen, or cruelty, or profiling of individuals. I don't think anybody's all right with that. So I think the best thing is not say it's either or, but how can we actually communicate and become a better community as a result of this? Because to me, on the other side, whenever there's a challenge or a problem, there's a antithesis, there's another side of that coin. And to me, it's opportunity. So I try to look at this situation and realize, where is the opportunity for me as an individual and our community as a whole to grow from the challenges that are presented? So I think we have to stay in dialogue. I was encouraged when I saw the mayor and Olive Branch pastor, Vincent Windrow, get together and talk and realize it's not going to be settled in one conversation.
Right.
Trust is not built in one conversation. We got to spend some time with each other and really listen to each other. And I think that journey, we're on that path. And I would hopefully, I would encourage it. I want to be a part of it. Bringing people that feel disenfranchised, whether they're voters or whether they're a particular group, whatever that people in our, I told somebody this is going to sound like a campaign spiel, but the fact is, the biggest problem we have is people who are apathetic or people that are complacent about their role in this process called democracy. I mean, get involved. You can make a difference. Your vote does change things. Your participation will move the needle, but you got to be persistent and you got to
get into the arena. That's right.
Got to jump in the arena. It's not, like I say, democracy is not a spectator sport. You got to get in the game.
That's right. So in Nashville, they've called for an advisory, like police advisory board. Has anybody called for one in Murfreesboro? What do you think about that?
Yeah. That was brought at some of the public hearings that we've talked about. That has been proposed, and we're in conversation about that. And what would that look like? Again, it's how do you put it together? It's got to, that same kind of thing can, how you put it together and the people that you have on it. Is it a productive thing, or is it something that just causes more division? I think it can be a very productive thing. I think in some sense, I truly believe that our police officers will welcome the review from the community to look at situations. I really do. I don't think they're standing in the gap saying, no, we don't need that. We don't want somebody else to look. That's not what I'm hearing with the police officers that I'm talking to.
That's what I would agree with that. From what
I think they welcome another set of eyes looking at the way they're doing it, because they do. They spend a lot of time evaluating protocols and procedures. How could we have done this better? It's not a matter of, our way or the highway, or we're just going to, continue. They evaluate. In fact, all of those things from May the 31st are being evaluated and discussed and dissected. That frog's being dissected to see what could we have done better. And quite honestly, something like the community board could help bring the two people together. Because the public's part is that issue could have been diffused by the people that were organizing the event if they had been and known the procedure to connect the police to their event. Sure. I was talking to some people that had been involved in the civil rights movement years ago, and they were talking about, we had one-on-one relationships with the people in the police department that told them, this is what we're doing, this is the route we're going, this is what to be expected, this is the time, this is the intent of it was very detailed in letting them know letting the police know what they were going to do, what their expectations were. But when it's a blank page and you're trying to figure out, well, what's going to happen next, then that's when some misunderstanding can happen. And I think that a police community board would give people a better awareness as how to inform and access to who do I tell when I'm getting ready to do something. I want to have a protest, because protest is a part of being an American. I mean, that's
right.
something you don't want to give up that right. That's a fundamental right. When something's not like I want it to be and I want it to change, I should be able to carry a sign around. Now, I don't get a chance to destroy things.
Right.
And I don't think personal property, I don't get a chance to do that. That is not protesting. But
that's rioting.
Anyway, I'm sorry, I'm talking too much.
No, it's all good. Body cams. Do you foresee Murfreesboro police getting body cams?
It's such an expensive thing, but it might be a part of the option that we're looking at. It might be. It still has some discussion.
I'm unfamiliar with how expensive they are, but I can only imagine that they are expensive.
Yeah. But then, in the sense that it verifies actions or facilitate, that's the thing. Everything is cost and benefit, but the issue is that it would validate action or it would disclose bad action. So there's something that we should look at for sure, and at the cost and benefits of incorporating that in our police officers. Yes.
So you're a photographer, right?
am.
How does that? Do you think that helps you as a city council member?
I'd say more it's the involvement in the community as much as being a photographer. I've taken a lot of pictures and photographed a lot of people, but one thing about being a photographer is it teaches you how to deal with people and talk to people. And I enjoy people. I enjoy relationships. I enjoy, getting to know people and connecting with them and finding out what drives them and stuff like that. And I think to some degree that has helped me as far as, just being personable and liking folks. But I think more of my involvement in the community, and that's what I would encourage. I think we've had this conversation too, is if you're looking to offer yourself for public service at some point in your life, start long before you ever run for office. You get involved in Leadership Rutherford, get involved in nonprofits, get involved in something that you're passionate about. My two passions all my life has been where I work with young people in a variety of different settings, and actually the process of voting and participating in.
Those young people grow up to vote. Right.
Well, they can, but I mean, I was doing it more. I mean, like in the church.
I know, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, they do sometimes. Unfortunately, we've got people on police force and people on that played Little League for me.
Sure.
When you for 45 years, now we're coaching kids that I've coached.
Right.
And so it is. But pouring good stuff into young people, trying to values and perspective into young people has always been something that I felt a calling to do, and I think that prepares you for public service when you're doing it for the right reason. If it's about your ego, if it's about feeding your ego, so I can call myself a city councilman, then all of a sudden, you can get distracted and diverted, and you miss the target when you're trying to do your public service. But if you know where your heart is and you settle your heart and your mind as to why you're doing what you're doing, then I think you're prepared to be a public servant.
How confident are you about winning this race?
It's in the hands of the public. We haven't raised any money, and we're not spending any money. I filled out my financial form the last time, and it was 0, 0, 0. And that, to make a statement, I think it's kind of sad that elections spend so much money.
Mm-hmm.
And particularly in a time like this, we spend all this money, and most of what we do ends up in landfill.
Sure.
And I've been around long enough that I if people know me, I trust that they will have a decision. They make the right decision. If they choose to return me to office, then I'll be glad to serve, and I'm looking forward to serving. But I'm frustrated that a lot of people in our community that are potentially very good or could be potentially very good public servants don't do it because they think it's so expensive, and it is. I mean, if you can
for some candidates, right? Like
you can spend a lot of money in a campaign, and I don't think it necessarily means that the guy that spends the most and puts the most yard signs up is the most competent person to be able to vote, have in office. So look, search, ask questions, do what you're doing, asking people to talk to you about it, and then determine who's prepared to lead, and then, like I say, don't be afraid to throw your hat in the ring and make yourself available to run, because it can happen. It can, the first time I ran, I didn't spend a lot of money. Every time I've run, I haven't spent a lot of money. So we just don't. And this time I decided just not to spend any money because, in fact, I've had two groups endorse me and ask me to want to give me a check, and I said, give it to a nonprofit. Give it to somebody that really needs it. And we've
Good for
had
you.
folks that are organizations that said they would do that.
That's great.
Don't feel I probably better tell you, but I think doing stuff like that, I think it is important. So anyway.
So, speaking about money in politics, how do you feel about district representation? Because part of the problem for running for office in Murfreesboro is that the city's so large, and so it's expensive.
Yeah, I was really encouraged, and this is going to be a longer answer than you're going to want. I'll try to keep it short because I thought about this greatly. A few months ago, a couple of folks met with them for lunch and told me that they were on the move to bring this forward. It was a petition drive, and then they were going to raise the petition to go before for the election, and then in August, and then the election would be in November. And I encouraged him. I said, my problem with it is how do we get it on the ballot? Because my thoughts is this a fundamental change in our charter? This would be like changing the Constitution. How do we govern ourselves? And I wanted to have a large number of people to be able to make that decision. And sometimes in these local races, we have 20% or less people participate in the process. So I thought that was a great way of looking at it and a great way to proceed with it. The problem with, the other option has been, well, why did somebody at council just say, we're going to have a special election for at large? Well, the question, and I went over to talk to Alan about that, Alan Farley over at the Election Commission office. And he said, the problem with that is that you'd have to define specifically what the question is. It can't be as broad as are you for district representation? You've got to say, where are the lines? How are they going? It's got to be a specific detailed question that you offer in the ballot.
Right.
So we've got to do, there's some work that's got to be done before that question is put before the public. And it may be that it happens, but I don't think we ought to facilitate it. I think we ought to do the hard work, those that feel it's a move that needs to take place. But I'd also say, look a little bit. I've had some conversation with friends of mine in communities that have district representation. And some of the conversation is that creates a competing interest. Is if you're not going to improve my roads, you're not going to put a school in my district. If you're not going to put a park in my district, I'm not going to vote for one in your district. And it creates that tension on the council that I don't necessarily believe that we have that now. Doesn't mean that we agree on everything, but we don't have that tension. And with all at-large members, if you happen to live next door to your representative and you don't see eye to eye with them, who do you go to? It's not, you'd have to find someone else that you can talk to. So in this instance, there are 6 or 7 of us, counting the mayor, that you can talk to about any issue in any part of the town. And quite honestly, there's issues this last year that came up that are on the other side of town from me. And I spent as much time in that neighborhood trying to figure out to feel their pain and to understand what the circumstances were. And it wasn't just, what's happened. In fact, I'm not sure my neighbors wouldn't think I don't give them enough attention. But so anyway, we need more dialogue.
Right. There are pluses and minuses to it, to both sides of it, for sure. Let's see. So one of the last questions, over your time of service, has there ever been any votes that you, looking back on, wish you could change? This is why I sent the questions out early. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Let's see if there's anything that I would change. This is going to be simple, but I don't think so. And I haven't gotten my way. There's times I've been the only person. Sazerac is one that I remember, and Hidden Acres is one that I was one of the few that didn't support it.
Right.
But I don't mind. I'm fully committed to when the 4 votes come and when we get a consensus of 4 people, I am for it.
Sure.
Once we get the consensus, I am for it. I'm not going to sit back and say, well, I told you I would. I don't feel comfortable doing that.
Right.
So, and I do believe there's a collective wisdom. And, you know, there's a diverse group of people on our council that come from different backgrounds, have different priorities, think differently about issues, and you know, we're not afraid to ask questions. And I think we, in that sense, support each other in their opinions. But once the vote's taken, it's taken, and that's the will of council. And we're going to hope for it to be. We're going to work for it to be the best. And again, that's my nature. I don't mind standing up for my beliefs, but once a consensus is built, I want it to be a success.
You're quite the statesman for sure. You know, because I've seen votes go against what you wanted before. You know, and you don't let it affect you. So it's quite admirable.
Well, I had somebody. I got to tell you. I don't mean this to be this, but somebody said sarcastically that I was trying to be a statesman. I thought, but in one of the forums that we had, it was in one of those public threads of social media and stuff that I was trying to be a statesman. And I went, Lord, you don't know me. I am not trying to. I'm trying to just tell you what I fit be.
You're just being Bill. Yeah.
I mean, I don't mean to be trying to be uppity about that. I'm just, that's who you know me. That's who I am. And if you don't believe me, then come and talk to me, and maybe you'll get a different impression than most of the people that meet me will get. But I try to do the right thing. Somebody asked me one time, "What do you want people to remember about you?" And I hope I say what I mean. And phrase, this is a phrase from my mama and dad: is say what you mean and mean what you say. And
Sure.
I hope that's the legacy that if you think about my public service, that you will know that I try to do the right thing, and I said what I mean, and I meant what I said. So.
Well, last question here. What problems do you think do you foresee you have, like, if you get reelected, that the city council is going to have to deal with for the next 4 years? I mean, is there anything out there that you see that we may have to worry with?
The last 3 or 4 months have told me that it's hard to anticipate anything. There's been so many difficult issues. So what we have to lean upon is, and really focus on, I think I would encourage all our citizens to do this, is to believe the best in people. Don't just assume the worst in people's intents, and look for the best in people. I've coached Little League for a long time, and a long time ago I learned about young people. If you look for the worst in people, you'll find it. And if you look for the best in people, you'll find that as well. So find our common, look, do we have the courage to lay aside some of our self-interest and look for the common good and work for the common good? Relationships are how democracy is built, and how the quality of life of our community will be sustained in the future. I don't know what the problems will be, but I know if we believe in each other and if we're willing to work together, we can find whatever answers that are there. We'll find the appropriate answers, but we got to learn to listen. Got to be able to listen to each other, and not just advance our own opinions and think that in expressing my opinion somehow that's going to move us towards something good. We've got to really listen to each other and value each other's perspective, even if they haven't come to the same conclusion as we are. In the midst of that discussion, we'll grow closer to the truth. And more importantly, I think as a community, we'll grow closer to each other.
Wow. Well, on that note, man, I'm going to wrap this one up because, Bill, thank you for making time for me.
Buddy?
I really appreciate it.
Hey, man, I value you got the most beautiful family. I tell you, they're just
very much
special. As I've told you before, I encourage you to enjoy them because it goes way too fast. We're in the grandparent phase of our life now, and that's a sweet phase. I will tell you, it's this real sweet phase.
I hear it's so great that if you could have had grandkids in the beginning, you just would have
started. It would
have
worked. yeah. If you could just skip that. No, I tell you, it goes so fast. But I mean, memories are something that can never be taken from you. And right now you're making great memories, not only for yourself, but for those kids. And sit back and reflect upon the times that you have, and what you did as a dad and what you meant to them, the time that you made for them, where what you did made them feel special. Is really, really neat. It's quite the blessing. But all phases of life are wonderful. It's just sometimes we spend too much time looking forward or looking backwards, and we miss the moment. And I think don't miss the moment, because
Sure.
right now there's good things happening and blessings to be had.
Thank you for that.
All right, my friend.
I really appreciate it. I'll
You
talk to you
bet.
soon. Good luck
All
in
right.
this race.
Thank you, my friend.